You ever have one of those moments where you realize the universe just handed you front row seats to someone's downfall? That was me 2 months ago, standing in a post office that had just been locked down because the president of our neighborhood HOA decided she was entitled to every single piece of mail that came through our zip code. I'm not exaggerating. She literally tried to claim ownership of the town's mail. And somehow I ended up being right there when the whole circus blew up in her face. Now, before I tell you how it all unraveled, let me set the scene. My name's Cal Jacobs. I sell commercial-grade security systems, locks, cameras, heavy doors, the kind of stuff people buy when they care about order and accountability. My wife, Sarah, she's an EMT.com, under pressure, sharp eyes, zero drama. We live in a small coastal community called Maple Dunes. Population maybe 2,000 on a busy weekend. Nice homes, white fences. HOA rules longer than the state constitution. And the queen of those rules, the self-appointed enforcer of every lawn height, mailbox color, and recycling bin position, was Linda Harper, middle-aged, pearl earrings, lavender pantsuits, always with a clipboard like she was issuing parking tickets from heaven. She'd been HOA president for 3 years. And if you ask anyone around here, that was 3 years too long. It started small, the way most controlled trips do. First, she began leaving warning notes about unsightly deliveries, packages left on porches for more than 12 hours. Then, she claimed she had the right to review all external communications relevant to the community, which somehow included flyers, advertisements, and eventually people's mail. We thought she was bluffing. We were wrong. One Tuesday afternoon, I walked into the Maple Dunes post office with Sarah to drop off a return package. The air smelled like old envelopes and disinfectant, the usual. But what wasn't usual was the sight of Linda Harper standing at the counter with a dolly stacked high with gray postal bins. She looked furious, her lips pursed, her eyes locked on Mr. Burns, the postmaster, who had that look federal employees get when they're seconds away from saying, "Ma'am, that's a felony." "This mail," she declared, tapping the bins like she owned them, "belongs to the Maple Dunes Homeowners Association. I'm responsible for reviewing it before distribution." Mr. Burns didn't even flinch. He just pressed a button under the counter, and with a loud, metallic slam, the steel shutter at the front door dropped shut. The entire post office sealed like a vault. People gasped. One woman dropped her stack of forms. "Me," I just muttered under my breath. "Oh, this is going to be good." "Ma'am," Burns said, voice flat as concrete, "you are interfering with United States mail. That's a federal offense." Linda straightened her blazer. "I am the president of Maple Dunes HOA. I have full authority over community correspondence." Sarah pulled out her phone and started recording. She didn't say a word, just held the camera steady, that little red light blinking like justice itself. Now, this feud between Linda and the rest of the neighborhood had been brewing for months. She'd intercepted gardening flyers, open holiday cards, even once fined an old couple because their grandson's birthday card had glitter on the envelope, said it violated community standards. But today, she went nuclear. Apparently, she'd followed the mail carrier, a young woman named Rosa, from the neighborhood's mailbox kiosk all the way back to the post office. Rosa told her she couldn't legally take the bins, so Linda followed her, barged into the loading area, and started piling up mail. By the time we walked in, she was full-on hijacking federal property. Mr. Burns had already called the postal inspectors. "For everyone's safety," he said loudly for the camera. "No one is to leave the building until inspectors arrive." You could feel the air change. It wasn't just awkward anymore, it was tense. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Papers rustled, and Linda stood there, hands on hips, muttering about chain of command. Then this older lady, near the passport counter, Mrs. Delgado, spoke up, trembling a little. "My husband's medication was supposed to arrive today," she said softly. "It's insulin. Is it in there?" She nodded toward Linda's bins. Linda didn't even look. "Everything's being properly sorted," she said, waving a hand. "If people manage their prescriptions better, this wouldn't be an issue." Sarah's head snapped up. "Excuse me," she said, stepping forward. "That's someone's life in those bins." "I'm ensuring compliance," Linda snapped. "If it mattered, they'd follow the rules." I felt something cold twist in my gut. There's controlling, and then there's cruel. Sarah pulled out her radio and called dispatch. Possible medical emergency. Delayed insulin delivery. Unknown condition. Stand by. Mr. Burns looked over at Linda's dolly. Wedged between catalogs and a stack of Amazon boxes was a small white cooler with red lettering. "Medical supplies. Keep refrigerated." "That's it," Mrs. Delgado cried. Burns stepped out from behind the counter. "Mrs. Harper, hand me that cooler." "Now," Linda backed up, clutching her clipboard like a shield. "This is evidence of postal mismanagement," she said, her voice rising. "You're all overreacting." I moved closer, not threateningly, just enough that she knew I wasn't going to let her bolt. Sarah stayed by the oldwoman.com. Professional. Burns' tone hardened. "Ma'am, you are obstructing the delivery of critical medication. If you do not comply immediately," she snapped with a wild look. She shoved the dolly forward. The metal bin slammed into a young postal clerk named Evan, barely 19. He stumbled back, hit the wall of P.O. boxes with a clang, and winced. Sarah rushed to him instantly, checking his pulse, his pupils, the whole routine. And that was it. Assault on a federal employee. "Step back, ma'am," Burns ordered. "Get out of my way," she screamed. Her voice echoed off the tile like a siren. Letters spilled across the floor. Bills, postcards, a birthday card with a cartoon dog. I remember one envelope sliding under my boot. The return address smeared in her panic. I placed a hand on the edge of the bin. She was still gripping. "Let go, Linda," I said quietly. "This isn't yours." "You don't understand," she hissed, yanking harder. "It's HOA property." Before I could answer, we heard them. The sirens getting closer. Her shoulders dropped. The fight drained right out of her. She stood there, panting, surrounded by scattered mail and silent witnesses. When the door finally opened, 2 inspectors walked in. Plain navy jackets, yellow letters on the back. "Us Postal Inspection Service." They didn't shout. They didn't posture. They just assessed the room like they'd seen this exact movie before. "Postmaster Burns?" one asked. Burns pointed at Linda. "That's her." She attempted to remove bins of mail. When I stopped her, she assaulted my clerk. The female inspector, crouched next to Evan, asked if he was hurt. Sarah answered for him. "He'll be fine." Then the male inspector turned to Linda. "Ma'am, I'm Inspector Dalton. This is Inspector Lee. Hands behind your back." You're under arrest for mail interference and assault on a federal employee. Linda blinked, frozen. You can't, but he already had the cuffs out. The sound of metal locking echoed through that small post office like a full stop at the end of her reign. Sarah's phone caught every second. The cuffs, the face, the cooler being handed to Mrs. Delgado, who clutched it like salvation. And just like that, the HOA president of Maple Dunes was let out in handcuffs, while half the neighborhood's mail lay scattered across the floor. But here's the thing. What came next made that scene look like the opening act. See, during cleanup, Inspector Lee found a stack of forged documents tucked into Linda's dolly. A mail-load authorization form with a Maple Dunes HOA logo signed by something called the Architectural Integrity Board. That board didn't exist. She'd faked the whole thing. Later that week, after Linda made bail, Sarah and I met with the inspectors downtown. We gave them every bit of evidence we'd been collecting for months. Photos of the fake violation stickers, screenshots of emails, Sarah's full video. The inspectors were thrilled. That's when the Rael story came out. The authorization form listed a P.O. box supposedly used for HOA correspondence. But when the inspectors traced it, it was registered under a fake name, Alan Preston, treasurer, with an address that didn't exist. The payments were made with anonymous money orders. They pulled security footage from the day that box was rented. Guess who walked in with Alan Preston? Linda Harper, and the man with her, Derek Shaw, a real estate developer with a reputation for swallowing up protected land for high-end housing projects. Now, it all made sense. Derek had been trying for years to buy the greenbelt that borders Maple Dunes, a beautiful 20-acre patch of oaks and wetland that kept our neighborhood quiet and valuable. The HOA had rejected every one of his proposals, so he did what greedy men do. He found a corrupt partner. Linda wasn't just playing queen of the mailroom. She was intercepting legal notices, zoning ballots, and letters from environmental groups, all to control the narrative and clear the path for Derek's land grab. When I heard that, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. All those petty fines, all those violation stickers, they were just camouflage for something much darker. Sarah and I knew we couldn't let it end with her arrest. The community deserved to know. We called Tom Weaver, the HOA secretary, a mild, nervous man who'd always seemed uncomfortable around Linda. We invited him for coffee in the next town over. I brought a printed still from the post office security footage. Linda and Derek at the counter signing the P.O. box form. Tom's hands shook when he saw it. She told me it was for legal correspondence, he whispered. Was it also for receiving payments from a company called Greenfield Consulting? I asked. His eyes widened like I just read his thoughts. She made me record it, he admitted quietly. The bribe Derek wanted, proof in case she turned on him. From his briefcase, he pulled out a small digital recorder. It's all there, he said. Their deal, the money, everything. We were stunned. That night, Sarah and I sat at our kitchen table, headphones in, listening to the audio. Derek's voice came first, smooth and confident. 200,000 when the vote passes, plus your monthly retainer. Same as before. Linda laughed. A short, ugly sound. Consider it handled. The board won't question me. That was it. The smoking gun. We turned everything over to Inspector Lee the next morning. She listened to a few seconds, looked up, and said, "You too might have just cracked a conspiracy." Over the next week, Sarah edited everything into one brutal cinematic timeline. Her footage, the CCTV, the body cam, the recording, the forged documents. It was airtight, and we knew exactly where to premiere it. The annual HOA meeting. That night, the clubhouse was packed wall-to-wall. People were whispering, phones in hand. Linda was there, back from bail, wearing her lavender suit-like armor. Her smile looked painted on. She opened the meeting with that same false confidence. "Tonight," she said, "we'll be discussing an exciting development opportunity to enhance the Maple Dunes Greenbelt." That was my cue. "Point of order, Madame President," I said, standing from the back. "Before we vote on selling community land, I think everyone deserves to see something first." Linda's smile faltered. "Mr. Jacobs, this is not," but Sarah had already plugged her laptop into the projector. The lights dimmed. The first frame hit the screen, a forged mail-hold form with Linda's signature. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the footage, the post office confrontation, the shove, the handcuffs, the bribe audio, the bank transfers. 15 minutes of undeniable truth. By the time it ended, the room was silent except for Linda's ragged breathing. The Martins, her loyal board members, resigned on the spot. People started shouting questions, demanding refunds, threatening lawsuits. Linda tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "This is all taken out of context." No one believed her. She left the room under a chorus of angry voices. The queen of the HOA, dethroned by her own arrogance and one hell of a home video. But the story didn't end there. 3 weeks later, Sarah and I sat in the back of a federal courtroom. Linda was at the defendant's table next to Derek Shaw, both looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. The prosecutor laid it all out: the mail interference, the forged documents, the bribe, the endangerment of a resident's life. When it came time for sentencing, the judge, a non-nonsense woman named Judge Harland, leaned forward and said, "Mrs. Harper, you used power meant for community service as a weapon. You violated federal law, endangered a citizen, and corrupted the trust of your neighbors. That is not leadership. That is arrogance in its purest form." Then she laid down the sentence. Full restitution, over $100,000 repaid to the HOA, plus individual compensation to every resident whose mail she tampered with. "And the best part, for a period of 5 years," the judge said, "you are prohibited from coming within 20 feet of any United States Postal Service mailbox or community mail kiosk." A 20-feet restraining order from a mailbox, poetic, and it didn't stop there. As part of her community service, Linda was assigned to, get this, the Maple Dunes Post Office. Sweeping floors, cleaning glass, sorting recycling under the supervision of Postmaster Burns. I saw her there once, wearing a neon orange vest, head down, mop in hand. She didn't look up, didn't speak, just kept scrubbing the same patch of tile like she could erase the whole mess if she worked hard enough. After that, things changed around Maple Dunes. The HOA was rebuilt from the ground up. We installed transparency rules, open books, rotating leadership. Tom became interim president, and the first thing he did was paint a bright orange circle around the neighborhood mail kiosk, exactly 20 feet in every direction. A permanent reminder of how far one person's ego can reach before it hits the wall. Sometimes Sarah and I walk our dog past that kiosk. We'll stop, grab the mail, and just stand there for a moment. The air feels lighter now. The silence isn't tense anymore. It's peaceful. I guess that's the irony, right? We all just want order, safety, predictability. But the second someone tries to control it all for themselves, everything falls apart. So yeah, I watched an HOA president get handcuffed in a post office and later sentenced to sweep the same floor she once tried to rule. And maybe that's justice. Not the loud kind with gavel bangs and applause, but the quiet kind, where everyone finally gets their mail on time, and the only thing left behind is a faint orange circle and a story people still talk about when they stop by the kiosk. Tell me what you think. Was that justice served, or just poetic irony? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because if you've ever lived under an HOA like ours, you probably have a story of your